This is Deborah Atkinson, and you're listening to the Voice for Fitness Professionals podcast, where I share programming, marketing, and promotion strategies that are easy, enjoyable, even fun, so you can create a business and a life that you love. And today, the topic is potentially, for some of us, not fun at all. But that is exactly why I have Shannon Weinstein with me to help soften the blow when it comes to finances, money, making sure that you're saving all that revenue that you might be bringing in, and what you can do and what you need to know about taxes. Shannon is a CPA and fitness professional based in Connecticut. After working in accounting for over 10 years and discovering her own passion for fitness, she decided to apply her background into her passion. Shannon provides one-on-one coaching for fitness professionals and business owners, as well as tax and accounting services. She operates most of her business virtually, serving clients all over the country. Shannon, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on, Deborah.
This is the elephant in the room. This is not a fun topic. So, you have to tap dance and do lots of things. I think we're all interested. We all know we need it, but there is that, do we really have to talk about that? I just want to go do the fitness thing. Do you get that? Are you met with that? Are you feeling like that's what is surrounding you when you talk to fitness professionals?
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that when it comes to fitness professionals, their zone of genius or their area of expertise typically isn't in the finance realm. I think it's very rare that you see someone who excels at more of the creative aspect and some of the more practical aspect of what accounting does. So I do enjoy kind of supplementing my client skills with what I can bring to the table.
So good. And being in it yourself, I mean, you are probably much more able to relate to, here's what's going on. So tell us how you actually got interested in the subject of finance, and then in fitness, how did that happen and evolve for you?
So actually, I've always been interested in finance a little bit. My father was a CPA, and ever since I was a kid, would always ask me if I wanted to become an accountant when I grew up. And I had no idea what that was. And I would ask him, what do you do? And he would say, well, I count things. And that's a very basic explanation of what we do. So I actually was lucky enough to take an accounting class in high school, which I know a lot of people don't have that opportunity. And I now appreciate so much what that provided me. But I took that class in high school, and I actually lost a bet with my dad because he said, if you take this class and you hate it, I'll never ask you to be an accountant again. But if you take this class and you love it, you need to major in it. So soon thereafter, actually, my teacher, I actually really enjoyed it. My teacher bumped me into the honors accounting class because I took to the subject really quickly, and I enjoyed it. And I actually discovered a real passion through my college years in taking my classes for teaching others and tutoring and helping people to understand the subject, which really was like a different language to most people.
So good. Okay, so talk to me about your fitness, and where is that? Are you a teacher, a trainer? What are you doing?
So I'm a group fitness instructor. I started with the Zumba program, which many people are familiar with. And I actually lost about 25 pounds taking Zumba as a student and fell absolutely in love with the program. Became an instructor myself, something that I kind of dreamed of doing and always was jealous of the instructor in the front of the room. Like, oh, I wish I could dance like that, or I could teach. And just really honed my skills and became an instructor within 6 months of taking class regularly. And I've been an instructor for about 6 years now. And I've developed on into TRX, Bali X Dance Fitness, and Strong Zumba, their new HIT program, along with some other group fitness class formats I've gotten certified in, including ACE and AFA. So I really just leaned into my passion for teaching that I developed in the finance career. I really love developing others and tutoring and teaching, so I just paralleled that into my fitness career as well.
I love that. And that's exactly what I was thinking. It's like, wow, yep, just a teacher at heart. And then you found two different ways to combine it. How awesome is that? You're skilled and you also have this passion for people. That is such a unique combination. I would have to tell you this, that potentially anybody listening can identify with this, but I don't think that this is very stereotypical of me. So somebody could be shooting me arrows right now, but I don't think when you think of an accountant, you think of, oh, fun person, warm person. But with a fitness professional, you absolutely do. So you have this diverse range that, maybe not a lot of others do, or we just don't appreciate or see it in them.
Yeah, I think that what I love about what I do is there's nothing wrong with bringing personality to this profession. And I think that we're not used to seeing accountants being, energetic or fun loving. People don't associate those things.
So good. Okay, so let's come back with your, unique bird's eye view. So you actually are living the life of a fitness professional and around likely tons of instructors, trainers, health coaches surrounding you as well. What do you notice? What are the common pitfalls or mistakes that you see fitness professionals make when it comes to managing their money?
Well, I would say the number one mistake anyone can make is ignoring the subject altogether.
Yep.
No one likes it, but it's kind of like your vegetables when you're a kid. You kind of need it to grow your health. And I think your business needs it, and you need to have a sound knowledge of what you're doing, even if you're outsourcing this function out to somebody else. You should be well versed in what you're doing, so you know if it's driving success for your business or not.
Let me ask an intelligent question here or try to. So when you say outsourcing it, and I think that may be for some listeners a good starting point. What do they need first? Do they need, I think, at tax time, everybody realizes I don't want to do this myself. They need an accountant to do the taxes. Do they need a bookkeeper? Do they need somebody who specializes in tax deductions that fitness professionals can take? Where do they start? What's the first hire that you might have in this area?
Now, of course, most of my questions, which frustrate some people, are answered with "it depends."
Yeah, right.
It depends a lot. And I would actually call to question, if any of our professionals or any of your audience is out there and they're trying to hire someone and somebody jumps on that with a very straight answer, much like if you ask a trainer a specific question, the answer should be it depends if they're well experienced and they have expertise, because there's a lot of other questions that run through my mind when you ask that. So
Okay.
it really depends on what stage of the business they're in. But what I would offer for advice would be find yourself a trusted advisor who's a professional in the related field or well connected in that field to get you the answers you need when you need them, so that you have that person you can go to quickly as a resource. Because in your infancy, you're going to want to set up a method of tracking your finances. Whereas tax time, you're going to want your taxes prepared. And during the course of the year, you're going to have other things that come up seasonally or every month or every quarter that you're going to need to do. So you just want to make sure that you have your team in place and you know who to go to for what.
Great. Great answer. Do you happen to have, is there a list of questions that a small business owner, and I think every personal trainer out there listening should be thinking of themselves as a small business owner? I mean, you've got to be running that practice as a business, even if you're working for somebody else, because there is always that chance that you're going to take this somewhere else. And if you put good habits into place now, they'll already be there. But is there a list of questions or a resource you would recommend, Shannon, that someone could answer that would take them to, here's what I need right now, a tool or a person, an individual?
I would because this isn't, I would not recommend doing this without talking to someone. I would recommend having a conversation with a professional and discussing all of these. Just like if you picture going into a gym and saying, I need personal training, you want to consult with a trainer, discuss your goals, and have them establish where you're at to tell you what the next step should be. And I think the same goes through for your financial fitness as well.
Great. Okay. So we mentioned one. So ignoring it all together is a big one. Trusting blindly, not just hiring out and saying, "Here, take care of this for me. Tell me when we're out of money." Not a good idea. Okay. So what other mistakes? I'm sure there are more than one.
Yeah. So the other one, I'll combine a couple related to taxes. And one would be not taking advantage of all the deductions that you can. And the one that goes along with that would be not claiming any of your cash income, which I know might be a controversial subject for some people or make them turn their heads hearing that.
Interesting. So can you give some examples of some deductions that trainers or health coaches may be unaware of?
Sure. So I actually spoke with a couple of health professionals this week, and we discussed their past taxes and talked about deductions they were taking. And it turns out they left a lot of money on the table. And the major things I'm seeing people leave on the table is they may be forgetting that they can take business expenses against their income as an independent contractor or self-employed trainer or instructor. They can take their business expenses like liability insurance, certifications, continuing education, transportation, even music can be deductible against your income as a self-employed individual or contractor.
Great one. And I know this question comes up a lot with regard to trainers, and such a gray area. So that may be the answer there. But what about clothing? Not a uniform, but clothing, and maybe it's branded, maybe it's your brand colors. But what are the rules and recommendations there?
So this is a controversial topic where there's not a ton of explicit guidance in the code on clothing. My personal advice, because I err on the side of being conservative for the most part, is you shouldn't get most of your deductions out of clothing. I think that most of your business expenses shouldn't be spent there. It might cause question, but in general, I say clothing could potentially be deductible if it's considered a uniform. For example, if you're required to purchase a certain color polo to wear to the gym, or you're required to wear certain company colors or a branded shirt. If you're basically given guidelines on what you can wear that's fairly restrictive, and that clothing really can't be worn on a regular basis or isn't worn on a regular basis outside of your place of work, then it's potentially deductible. However, if you're just going to Lululemon on a sale and buying a bunch of leggings, that's tough to deduct.
Gotcha. Okay, great help, and disappointing, but okay. All right. And, when it comes to taxes and tax time, I am sure I am not the only small business owner that has the reality that I have a problem. So I'm just going to guess there may be some issue with not setting money aside for taxes when you very first are working on your own. It's no longer being taken out by somebody else. How big a problem is that? Is it only me?
Definitely not only you, Deborah. It is the struggle for a lot of fitness professionals, because not everyone is told that once you shift from a employee with a W-2 having your taxes taken out for you over to an independent contractor, nobody really, at least in my experience, not many people explain that in terms of what your responsibilities are. So you would be responsible for tracking all of that income and paying the taxes that are due on it.
Great. And how do you recommend a small business owner set something up so that they're not caught, quote unquote, with their pants down at that time? And sometimes for a small business owner, it's, paying quarterly taxes in, or what are alternatives to that?
Right. So most likely, if you're making income from, I call it 1099s, which you might be familiar with, January, you get those if you're an independent contractor or self-employed. Um, so what you would do is get the income just as you would, you'd invoice your facility or owner, you get paid, and you can pay estimated taxes. Most likely, you're paying estimated taxes quarterly, which is set up by your accountant when you file your taxes. So you'll get vouchers to pay those over the course of the year, and you should just pay those as they come due at the 4 due dates throughout the year. And that will help you stay on track with paying your taxes. But to make sure you can pay those quarterly, what I highly recommend is that you set up some type of savings where your money is automatically going to be taken out and set aside so that you have that ready to go when the taxes come due on the quarterly basis.
Such a good idea. And so much less stressful. Just saying. Okay. Okay. What should listeners be thinking? Because I think we've got ambitious listeners who may be working for somebody right now, but thinking someday, I'm going to break out on my own. I'm going to do something on my own, whether it's online or opening up a business. What should our listeners know if they're moving away from being employed to becoming self-employed? Aside from the tax issues, setting those aside that we just talked about, anything else?
So I think not only with just the taxes being withheld, but you need to keep track of those expenses that you can claim as deductions and make sure you're staying on top of those. Because as my clients know that I've been working with, we're going through the entire year right now and trying to backtrack through credit card statements, bank statements, and PayPal to figure out where all those expenses are so we can add them all up. And instead of going through that exercise, which is a bit more painful, it's much easier to just be able to log those as they happen and just, with a click of an app or something like that to help you, you can keep track of those so easily and then be able to hand that over to your accountant and make sure every dollar in deductions you can take advantage of.
Such great advice. Okay, so you mentioned click of an app. Are there apps that you recommend? Are we talking QuickBooks? What are we talking about?
So QuickBooks is one, and I happen to use that. There's a great version of QuickBooks that's very cost effective for self-employed. And what it enables you to do is connect to your bank account. So if you have a business bank account, every transaction that happens comes across your dashboard in QuickBooks on the app and tells you there's a new transaction. All you have to do is classify it as what type of income or expense, and all of it gets logged in the app for you. And you can log in at any time and see where you're at and how everything is categorized. And it's a very helpful tool to just be able to quickly file that away and have it ready when you need it at tax time.
Such a good thing. Okay. And that's not retroactive either. So if you haven't set that up and it's now October or November, if you're listening, or depending on what time of year you are listening, you still have to go back and start it. Is that correct?
You would have to catch yourself up for sure. And that's one
Yeah.
thing that I have been working with a lot of my clients to do. And one thing I help with is getting folks set up with tracking this stuff either through an offline tool, something more manual, or we can set up the app if there's enough transactions happening to go through that in QuickBooks.
Great. Okay. Thanks so much. And then, how do you make sure at the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the month and year, there's some money there? Because there are expenses. I think a lot of new business owners just take for granted when they're working for somebody else that the marketing actually costs quite a bit of money, that the advertising costs a lot of money, and that, you now don't have any funding for continuing education or conferences or travel. How do you recommend someone plan ahead for that in, maybe in percentages or estimated costs that'll come up?
So I think it's a really good idea to have a plan and to be able to set aside priority items out of the money that's coming in. So if you want to set up a certain amount that goes towards your personal savings or towards taxes, you should absolutely do that. One thing to keep in mind too is what we call cash flow. So if people are familiar with this, it's about the timing of when money's coming in, because I think one of the things that is the biggest change for people who work as contractors, who used to work as employees, is every 2 weeks as an employee, you get a paycheck and probably of close to the same amount. And it's pretty steady, right?
Right.
So as
I
a
see where this
contractor
is
or
going.
self-employed, that will change.
Definitely, it changes. Yes. And as you change your business, it changes again. It's like having babies, right? You just get good at one phase and then they're in a different one.
Absolutely. And think about January versus July in terms of when money's coming in the door for a fitness professional. So if you're not an employee. So one thing I like to say is understand your cash flow and know that the money coming in January has to last.
Great recommendations. Okay, so I'm going to ask an off the cuff question. Just listeners, I want you to know, in fairness, Shannon doesn't know this one's coming, but I think it's very relevant because quite often when somebody really needs a professional, it's specifically right here. Somebody needs someone who's good with numbers and finances and who can look at, here's where you are. Here are the facts. This should help inform what you think you want, what you think you need, and what you really have to keep your business floating. But when somebody needs you, quite often they'll be thinking, well, I can't afford you. Can you just speak to that a little bit without necessarily sharing numbers? But how does someone like you who coaches in this area and or performs the actual duties, how do you set up your fees? Is it on a monthly? Is it on a project basis? Is it on a regular basis? I think listeners will be curious about what's possible. What can you do for me and how can you do it?
No, this is a great question. So traditionally, if you think of accountants, right, you think of billable hours and paying for their time. And this is something that I have tried to stay away from doing because I don't want someone to feel that a phone call to me means I'm sending them a bill. So what I have done is I've created an approach that is relatively unique for an accountant where I base it off of the goals of the person that I'm working with. So we establish goals in a discovery call on what you want to work on. Then I establish what it's going to take to get us there and some expectations. And I charge my fees based on my, perceived value I'm providing and level of effort to get us there. So I consider a lot of different factors, including the time it takes. But I definitely don't charge on a per hour basis or have a set price list of fees. I think I highly customize it to what my clients need based on how complicated their situation is and how much of my time that it demands.
Great answer. Okay. Love that. And really, I think personal trainers who might be listening or business owners who are, a personal trainer and or in charge of a larger personal training department can identify with that because we've gotten away from hopefully exchanging a dollar for an hour for personal training. We're really focusing on the transformation and membership options or, regular relationships. We're looking at the longevity of it, not okay, somebody comes in 2 hours per week. This is what we're charging them. I love that. Very relative. Okay. So it sounds like potentially the next step would be how do they get in touch with you? And if you do a discovery call with someone who's interested, how would they find you?
So you can find me on social media. I'm pretty active on Instagram. My handle is at Shannon K. Weinstein. And I'm also the owner of a company I created called Financial Solutions. So my email is Shannon at fitfinancialsolutions.com if you'd like to get in touch with me there as well. But I'm very active on Facebook and on Instagram, so folks can find me there if they'd like to direct message me. I do check those very frequently.
So good. Awesome. Shannon, thanks so much for being here. And I'm going to ask one more. This is like the hardest question. I hope you're sitting down. Is there a question I should have asked you? Something we missed?
I'd like to go back to the claiming your cash topic, because I know I brought that up, but I think there might be people wondering why I gave that advice.
Great.
So I mentioned earlier in the show that I recommend that you not, or I should reword this. I recommend that you, one of the mistakes actually that I identified was that people don't claim any cash income.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of fitness professionals, especially who get paid in cash, they might think, oh, I don't have to claim that on my taxes. Technically, you're supposed to claim all income that you make during the year. And one thing I've noticed is that if you're not claiming the cash as your income, because there is no record of that cash hitting your pocket, if you're not claiming it on your income, maybe you forgot that you got it or you haven't kept track of it. Well, if a good amount of your income is cash, one thing to keep in mind is your tax returns and the amount of money you make on those tax returns is a major factor in some other financial events in your life, like buying your first home or taking out a loan. And they look at the income that you make to judge whether or not you can pay off that loan. So it's important that if you're getting the most of your money in cash and you're not claiming it, you could be doing yourself a disservice by painting the picture that you make far less than you actually do and can't afford the home of your dreams that you're trying to buy.
Great tip. So really, not claiming that is kind of short-sighted and you're going for the long game, how it helps you otherwise. Love that. Awesome. Thanks for that last tip. That was a big one. And listeners, if you have a question that I missed, go ahead and add it to the show notes. And right now, know this. So both for the Flipping 50 specialist and for marketing and sales tips to get your new year off on a strong basis, I'm accepting coaching applications for private business and for private personal trainers. So connect at the show notes, best place to do it. And we're going to do that right at fitnessmarketingmastery.com/taxes. And I would appreciate it if you'd leave a rating in iTunes. It really helps. Check out the blog and other podcast episodes at fitnessmarketingmastery.com and make a difference.